Imagine you buy a plane ticket to China. You don't speak Mandarin. You never even studied it. And you land there. You walk outside and you look around. There's signs everywhere. Little symbols that you can't read. People talking so fast and fluid, completely natural to them. And you understand nothing. Would you stand there and say, these people are speaking nonsense? This doesn't mean anything to me. Of course not. You would say, I'm in uncharted territory here. And if I want to survive, I better learn this language. That is the psyche. Most people have been living next to it their entire lives and treating it like noise. Thoughts they don't understand, sometimes even disturbing ones, and images of destruction, fear, catastrophe, overwhelming emotions that arrive without explanation, a feeling in the body that won't translate into words. And the assumption underneath all of it is that if the rational mind can't immediately process it, then it means nothing. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is that you don't speak the language yet. And here is what I want you to sit with. When you land in China, you are the outsider, not them. You walked into their territory. Their language existed long before you arrived. It has structure, grammar, and depth. And it carries incredibly complex meaning. You just don't have the tools to receive it yet. And the psyche is the same. It has been communicating with you your entire life. Not randomly, not without structure, but with its own grammar. And it has its own pattern, its own way of organizing meaning. And you are the one entering its territory, not the other way around. Now, here is what I know from actually learning another language. You don't just arrive and start talking. That's not how it works. The first thing you do is listen. And you listen for a very long time before you can even begin to structure a sentence. You will have to absorb the sounds, patterns, rhythm, and repetition. Something is building underneath the surface that you cannot fully track or control. And only after a long period of exposure that something begins to open. And the relationship with the psyche works the same way. The first practice isn't interpretation. It's not analysis either. It's not decoding every signal the moment that it arrives. It's listening, and listening for long enough that the patterns begin to emerge. So what does listening actually look like? The psyche communicates through more channels than most people realize. The body is one. Where does it tighten when you're about to say yes to something that you actually want to say no? Where does it open when something is genuinely right? Emotion is another. When an emotion arrives, most people immediately build a narrative around it. They want to explain it, justify it, they assign blame, they make it mean something. And in doing that, they lose the raw signal underneath it. Intuition is another. The quiet knowing that arrives before the explanation. Most people override it constantly. They logic over it. They talk themselves out of it. They call it irrational. But that's not irrational. It's a different way of knowing. And sometimes it happens in dreams, sometimes in the shower. When your mind finally finally quiets down long enough for you to hear something underneath all of that noise. And then there are dreams. The psyche speaks through images when words are not available. And one dream contains more than most people realize. Not because dreams are vague, but because dream symbolism has its own grammar. Let's think about language again for a minute here. Grammar doesn't come first. You listen for a very long time before you can construct a sentence correctly, before subject and verb clicks into structure in its place. And dream interpretation is at that stage. It's advanced. It requires a foundation to build first. So for now, just write them down. Not to decode them immediately, but because you're beginning to collect a language that you will learn later on. And this is where most people make the mistake. Most people don't actually want to listen to the psyche. They want to control it. They want it to tell them what they want to hear. But that's not what learning a language looks like. That's demanding that China speaks English. And here's something worth saying directly. If you have spent time in the mainstream spiritual space, and most of us have, you may need to be willing to set aside almost everything that you were taught there. Not because those spaces were lying to you, but because most of them never taught you symbolism language. And the psyche communicates primarily through symbolism, through images, patterns, emotion, and repetition. Mystics have always known this, but mainstream spirituality barely even touches it. So people end up experiencing things, having feelings, visions, dreams, in strange moments without the literacy to understand what they're actually receiving. So they go in circles. And this is why listening comes first. Not interpretation, not decoding, not confirmation, but listening. Listening until the language begins to reveal itself. You're not failing because you don't understand the psyche yet. You're standing in a country that you've never been to, surrounded by a language that you were never taught, and you are just now beginning to listen. You're not behind. You are at the beginning of learning a new language. I'm Raquel. This is The Hermit, and I'll see you in the next video.